You know, when I interview people for these videos, I always have some very specific questions that I ask them, but I also at the end just kind of let them throw out their own ideas of things they think are important, and maybe things they would have wished they would have known when they were younger as worship leaders. And recently, I had within an hour, had two different people say virtually the same thing, just kind of out of the blue. And I thought it was pretty profound. So I'm just going to let you watch and see what they had to say. These are my friends, Shannon Shaffer from Michigan and John W. Stevenson from Ohio. Both of them veteran worship leaders who have been at this for a long time, who have a lot to share. Take a look.
Last week I was leading worship in a group of about 25 individuals. Some senior people. When I say senior people, I'm saying some individuals who are pastors and leaders. And the gentleman that invited me to lead the worship, he called me and he said, I just want to thank you for allowing God to use you to lead us into this incredible place of intimacy and worship. And he began to use words as to how he felt, it was in terms of, the sweet presence and the peace of God. But then he said, and you do it in a way that you get out of the way. And if I would say one thing that I've learned, and one thing I would say to other maybe up and coming or young worship leaders would be to understand the goal is to lead and then get out of the way. And my pastor, who happens to be an incredible worshiper and worship leader himself, one time said to me, I was taking him to the airport, and he said, can I share something with you? And I said, sure. And he began to just share with me, hey, your worship is great. He said, but I just want to encourage you not to necessarily say as much as you say in trying to lead the people. He said, because once you've begun to lead them, the Holy Spirit will begin to move them into the direction that he wants to take them based on where they're at personally, and what he desires for them. Because sometimes, if we're not careful, we can almost do this like we're herding cattle. And there is what I believe to be a unique dynamic of corporate worship. But even in the midst of that, there's still the personal expression. If there's one thing I've learned over the years, is to be able to lead and then get out of the way.
One of the things that my pastor has often complimented me on that I would never say of my own self, but he says, I have the ability to lead worship without becoming the focus. I have the ability to lead and kind of blend into the background, and people aren't looking at me. And everybody's got a different personality, but when I approach leading worship, I want to do everything I can to point people to Christ. I don't want to do anything that's distracting, anything that's pointing towards me. And I think the reason that could happen is because of having an incorrect attitude as you're approaching. Maybe you think more of yourself than you really should be, and maybe we aren't as focused on creating an atmosphere where God is comfortable, where he is present, and we're more focused on the performance aspect of it, which draws more attention to ourselves, right? So I think that if we go back to what I mentioned earlier, and my whole philosophy is to create an atmosphere where God feels comfortable and welcome, and it's not people-centered, it's God-centered, then that even as a worship leader, that takes me right out of the forefront and it puts Jesus at the forefront. So again, creating an atmosphere where he's the focus takes the focus off of me. And if I'm not doing this in a performance-oriented type of situation where I'm trying to impress people, they're a lot less likely to be looking and focusing on me, and they'll be engaged with him. So that's always been my philosophy.
Now, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get some pushback on this one, because as leaders, we should be up in front, being seen, leading, if you will. But at the same time, there is a dimension of humility that needs to be involved in what we're doing. If I'm distracting from the focus on God, then I'm really not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And yes, I recognize I need to lead and I need to be directing the people. We've talked about that in other videos. I totally get that. But this to me is an attitude that says, I want the Lord to be seen. More of you, God, less of me. And when we have that attitude, I think we're in the right vein of what these guys are talking about. And so I want to challenge you today to think about this. What does that mean for you? I don't want you just to kind of watch this video and say, oh, that was nice. What does this mean for you? And how is it going to make a difference in how you approach leading your congregation in worship?
Brought to you by MyWorshipLeadingCoach.com.
Helping you to be more fully equipped as a worship leader.